Welcome to the Wandering Tangent Podcast. I'm BJ, with me is Jeff and Gary, and today we're going to get biblical as we talk about the 1956 epic. Historical? Question mark? Epic? Anyway, we're talking about the Ten Commandments.
Indeed. And we have to first talk about what you mentioned in the review, which was that every time BJ and I seem to talk about Charlton Heston, we always reference when we were forced at school long ago to listen to Charlton Heston read the entire book. What was the book? Like
Old Man and the Sea.
Old Man of the Sea.
Which is probably not a terribly long book. Like, just for fun, I did search around a little bit last night to see if I could find a Heston reading of it, just to refresh my memory, because, you know, there's... I've seen the argument made that high school English is more or less designed to make people hate reading.
You're probably right. I don't know why, but, you know.
It's almost like school is designed to make us hate learning itself. But that's not true. That's not true. Of course not. No.
It just feels like that.
Except for...
We stay in school and love it.
Wait.
And we will.
Because nothing sparks the joy. Nothing sparks the joy of reading more than taking a bunch of teenagers and make them read/listen to Ernest Hemingway. To be fair, I don't think I've read like any Hemingway since high school, so I should probably try that again before I judge him harshly.
You know, a person's taste does change when they get older. I have found my palate of eating has changed significantly from when I was a child, as has my palate for reading. So you're right. Maybe older BJ and older Gary and older Jeff would probably appreciate Mr. Hemingway's works. Or maybe not.
Yep. We should probably
maybe not.
We should probably all read it, and then we'd come to the opinion that all young people should be forced to read it by compulsion. And we would gladly agree.
I follow a few authors on social media, and recently there was a relatively grand debate about whether or not The Great Gatsby is a good book, and most of the authors that I follow are generally they don't write, shall we say, highbrow, navel-gazing books. So most of them are like, oh yeah, Gatsby's a terrible book. I should also mention I have not read The Great Gatsby either, and from how these people described it, I don't think I want to.
On the other hand, BJ, I mean, you know what you like, right?
More or less, yeah.
People sometimes get on their high horse and get very judgmental, but when a person knows what they like, you know, and you can, you know, branch out a little bit here and there, but if you're not really enjoying something, unless you're being required to do it through some sort of obligation, why are you doing it, right? You're not being obligated to read the highbrow stuff. You would do it because you enjoy it, right? And if you don't enjoy it...
We're doing it so 25 years later, we can sit on a podcast and do a bad Charlton Heston impersonation and say, I wish you had the boy with me. You'd pick him up by the ankles and use him as a club against the Sharks. That's
maybe if you read it,
you that's would a call out to a I don't think that was any of us that came up with that. That was a mutual high school friend, which I have not talked to probably since high school or roundabouts there. Maybe a little after high school.
So do you guys like Charlton Heston movies / performances? What is your opinion?
More or less. Now that I stop to think about, like, outside of maybe like the Ten Commandments and Ben-Hur, I've not seen a lot of, shall we say, quality movies that he's in.
Yeah.
Like
so there's certain people. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I was going to say, like, I think I've seen the Omega Man, and, like, the only line I can remember from that I probably shouldn't say because it hasn't aged very well out of context.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't say anything out of context that doesn't age very well. Steer clear.
I can't remember if I've seen Soylent Green end to end. I've seen parts of it.
Yeah, I've seen parts of
people.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert for Soylent Green, I guess.
Yeah.
It's kind of, and I'm sure it was impactful in the day, but the kind of books I like to read and the kind of media I like to consume, hearing that Soylent Green is made out of people just doesn't quite have the same impact to me as it might have had on a person of that day and age. I'd have been like, oh.
Yeah,
okay,
social commentary, Plus,
sort of thing.
There's times where I open a box of crackers, they're like multicolored, and I think, Soylent Green.
People.
They're all different colors. They're now feeding us different colors.
And the fact that there's
I will
a
say
product,
that by
no, there's a product these days that's called Soylent. So, yeah.
Oh, I think Soylent is the actual word. I know.
I know.
I don't think the movie.
But,
I don't think the movie's.
Yeah. Anyways.
Anyway.
I don't know what that argument was, but we'll call it over. Okay, now back to the 10 Commandments. Big piece of gossip just to start us off with. Apparently, the director, gossip. Cecil
gossip about the 70-year-old movie.
Yes, hearsay. Apparently, the director, Cecil B. DeMille, who is the same person you see at the very beginning who comes out from the curtain and gives this kind of interesting way to start a movie. He gives kind of a spiel about things, but...
Curtain?
Yeah, curtain, yes. Whatever I said was probably wrong. So...
No, I mean, okay, so I don't want this to be like the time we watched Miracle on 34th Street. I confirmed with BJ the 1956 one with Charlton Heston, Yul Brynner, Ann Baxter, Yvonne De Carlo, all these people, right? That was the 10 Commandments we watched, right?
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if not every version of the movie out there had sort of the I don't know what to call it,
what do you call it?
Opening statement. The
opening introduction statement. So Gary's, yours did not have that. We're the director of the movie, which is Cecil B. DeMille. He comes out and there's a microphone. He's like, "Hello, everybody," and he gives a little tiny spiel, and then he goes back behind the curtain.
Yeah, no, there was nothing like that. I started with looked like a kind of a cloudy sky, and there was a voiceover saying, "God said, let there be light."
Okay,
so your version didn't even have like the the overture.
Yeah, there's a long overture too that was cut out, and that's fine.
There was an overture where they showed like the opening credits and whatnot, but that was it, right?
Yeah, not every release or version may have it then. Interesting. Yeah. But my point is he had a heart attack during the filming of this movie, and he kind of covered it up, and he hid that from the studio because he didn't want the studio to find out, because there was a chance they may actually shut down the picture if they had found out that he was unwell. So he decided to go back to the set, even though his doctor told him he couldn't. If he went back to the set and continued in this high-stress situation, that he would surely die. And he decided, you know what? I'm making my movie. And then he went back anyway. So he literally risked his own health, or possibly more, to finish the film. And it didn't come out until years later, apparently. He covered it up and said that he was sick, but not that he actually had a heart attack. But I mean, at his job, think with all the extras he had to deal with, and he's making a movie that is grand in a whole new scale of things. It's a big film with so many sets and traveling long distances. It's huge, and he had to climb up ladders to look over things, and it's just an enormous amount of work. But anyway, I just wanted to say that.
I don't know where to go from there, so...
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on.
So kind of interesting. That was, kind of interesting.
So Gary, in your review, you did mention a different movie which kind of follows the same plot line, The Prince of Egypt, which was when was Prince of Egypt? Was that like 1990 or was that 2000?
Sometime
1998.
Yeah. And okay, maybe I shouldn't have, but
I don't know.
No, that's fine. Do you like The Prince of Egypt? I mean,
I will say that I'm right
seen
there
it
with
a long
you.
time ago, but
Like during I had the plague song from The Prince of Egypt going through my head during all the plague scenes during the Ten Commandments.
And for me, it kind of part of me was like thinking, so in this movie, so one of the things that kind of drew my score down a little bit was exposition, right? Admittedly, this is a huge story, and I always love the concept of showing, not telling. And it's really hard to do, large sequences of story if you just by showing, right? This movie does a lot of showing, but there's parts of it even that they have to tell with exposition dumps. And it in Prince of Egypt, it covered a lot of those sections with kind of a musical montage sequence, right? Like you said, the plague sequence. Another one where it kind of like it ran through my head the most was when the people were leaving Egypt, right? When the Hebrews were gathering together to leave Egypt. And that was a very long sequence in this movie. And it was very short and yet told the same exact story over the course of one song. A very beautiful song in my opinion. But it just told that same exact story through kind of a musical montage of just one song. And you're just like, oh, okay, it's kind of everybody's, picking up and leaving. And it's one of those like differences of the way the two versions of this story were told. And it struck me as a difference. So
there's a couple times over the last week or so that I kind of pondered if we should watch The Prince of Egypt instead, but
no, we were locked in, and I don't regret doing this one. Though tonight I might go back and watch Prince of Egypt just because. They tell
the same story, but there's pros and cons in both of them. I do like in Prince of Egypt. How do I describe it? So the Ten Commandments is like more about the whole story. The Prince of Egypt is much more focused on like the human element. So they kind of go like the exact opposite way, kind of, because like I said, and Gary kind of agreed with me in my review, once Moses, after Moses' experience at the burning bush, he he's much less of a character after that, I guess is how you would phrase it. Whereas in the whereas in The Prince of Egypt, it is much more like all has the same trappings, but it is more of a story between the conflict between Moses and Ramses personally.
Yeah, I'm
sorry, go ahead.
In Ten Commandments, the two, it shows their relationship as fundamentally different. In Ten Commandments, they are two rivals to the possibility of the crown of Egypt, right? Whereas in whereas in Prince of Egypt, they're brothers, and they just, in both of them, they have a fundamental disagreement as to the future of the Hebrew people, but the nature of their relationship is completely different in the two movies, and I did find that very interesting, and I kind of appreciated it. I just appreciated more the way that the Prince of Egypt would tell the story as opposed to the Ten Commandments.
And how the Prince of Egypt is about half as long.
Oh yes, that too. That is definitely...
So I think what they're going for...
BJ?
So I will note that the Ten Commandments is not the longest movie that we have watched. That goes to Gettysburg, because Gettysburg is the longest movie ever.
What was it, Jeff, you were saying about 2001? It's still playing to this day.
It's still, yeah. You've missed it in the theater. Don't worry. It's still there. It's still going.
I looked at Gettysburg is 4 hours and 14 minutes. So Gettysburg is still going. After the opening speech, after the overture, after the exit music, Gettysburg is still going. They're still... Yes. And Jeff's over here with spaceships and colors, and it works in Star Trek, but on 2001.
Look at the spaceships. I know.
It's not the Enterprise, so it's not interesting, I guess.
Okay, well, back to your comment a little bit. I think the reason why Moses' character is supposed to be different is because that experience is supposed to change him. So if you went along with the same Moses, it would feel wrong. So then you have to change him. And perhaps the change didn't work, but it was necessary to change the character, though, at that point.
Well, like I said, I get why they did it. I think they could have done it a different way. Then again, now that I think about it, a lot of the quote unquote good guy characters don't really have a lot of personality.
They're just good.
I definitely agree with you, BJ. The villains of this particular movie definitely make this movie much more interesting, right? Yul Brynner,
man, holy cow!
Oh yeah,
no, I agree.
He knocks. And what's this other guy? What was his name?
Dathan. Dathan's the character name.
Edward G. Robinson.
Yeah.
Dathan.
Just the look
and
in
Baxter.
his eyes. He's got that.
Those three villains definitely make this movie, and you understand them when you're watching it, right? And Baxter, Nefertari.
Now, some people consider Nefertiri a villain. I don't know if you fully categorize her as a villain, though, but she sometimes is designated that way.
She ends up as a villain, I feel.
In the end, she becomes a villain, but she has mixed feelings, and she has good parts to her too, but she's also incredibly selfish underneath. But
yeah, and Jeff,
I don't know.
that selfishness
I'm kind of mixed because
what?
she has.
No, she wants Moses for herself, and it doesn't matter what she destroys to get him by her side, and that is like the most villainous thing I can think of. I
know, but she does save Moses' son, which
but it only
is not a typical villainous thing. That's more of a neutral character.
Yeah, but
she saves his son to get his wife to leave.
Yeah, so that she can have Moses for herself. It's so it's
so I guess kind of the end justifies the means, or the means justify the end, or I don't know how to phrase it. I see where Jeff is coming from with that example.
It's definitely, I know,
agree.
and I get there's a lot of villainous aspects to her, but I feel like she was a person who was in a difficult situation, and I mean, she's in the top of Egypt. She's royalty. She lives off of the labor of slaves. She has this glamorous life, and I think all of that comes crashing down on her. And in the end, she loses all sorts, everything, including her dignity, just like Ramesses. And I love the final scene where Ramesses comes back with his sword, and she's like, well, did you kill him? And he's like, no. And the way she gives the line, it's almost like a normal couple where the husband comes home and the wife's like, well, did you do it? And he's all, no, I couldn't do it. And she's just upset. And I think the whole thing is funny, but I think that there was she could have been a good person in a better situation. I think that she just was born into a selfish royal family, and she bought into that. If she would have gone with Moses, maybe she could have lived a different lifestyle. But who knows? Who knows?
Also,
it's all
to be fair, by that point, she was also a murderer.
Yeah, she did kill people. Yeah. She killed people because she
killed
Moses.
What's her name? Mehmet?
Mehmet, who is a very famous actress played by her too. But yeah,
Edith Anderson.
Yep.
I also have to ask.
I have the page open, so that's why I know.
I also have to ask, and I know this is a meme amongst royal families in general, and most especially Egyptian royal families in particular. What exactly was the nature of the relationship between Ramses and Nefertiti before
you don't want to
married? Was it just say. Like half
they don't
sibling?
Make it. They kind of. They don't really come out and say it, but yeah,
they gave her the title of like the crown princess or something like that. So like I think the only piece of background they give about her is that she's destined to marry whoever becomes the king, the
pharaoh.
Pharaoh, that's the word. And so I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so but I kind of got the impression that the pharaoh at the beginning of the movie was the father of both of these people in some way, shape, or form. So maybe it wouldn't have been the father figure at the very least.
Okay.
Like me personally, I never got the drift of, they're incest, I never got that drift personally, but
I'm gonna
stop beating around the bush and just say the word.
We're not supposed to say the word, right?
I said the word.
Oh, okay, that's fine. It's out now.
I know that's a meme amongst, you got to keep it at least kind of, because you can't thin down the royal bloodline. At least that's the.
You're not supposed to.
You're not supposed to.
But the ancient Egyptians, you're not supposed to, but ancient Egyptians did mess up their royal bloodline a lot because they didn't understand how bad of an idea that is. In fact, Tutankhamun, the one pharaoh we know lots about, which I am not a huge expert on, but I know he was kind of messed up because of that particular reason, because they were not keeping their bloodlines correct, as they didn't realize what they were doing. So maybe
Moses's blood being in the royal line wouldn't have been the world's worst thing. But anyways.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I guess to be fair to the Egyptian royal family, which I'm not an expert of, there was also, like, they didn't do that all the time. Like, there was Cleopatra. It wasn't Cleopatra like Greek?
Yeah, like so that would be later. But yeah, the Greeks
that's
at the time of Alexander the Great,
was the Ptolemaic line, which has a P in there. It's weird. Anyways, Ptolemaic line, and they were Greek from Alexander the Great's. Like, he conquered Egypt, and one of his generals, Ptolemy, was given Egypt as kind of a,
which
as his reward.
I will totally.
Which is far from what this time period was. That's like way further ahead.
Yeah,
But
My
But
Greek
one of-
slash Egyptian history, like, I am very weak on that front.
But yeah, no, it's.
They were nerds who
I
liked
only
to
know
carve
about it
things and write a lot.
because I only know about it because some of the science fiction series I read goes into that, and it's kind of interesting how that how that bit of history went.
I do want to say one thing.
You know about ancient
I'm kind of
Egypt from
thinking
science
about it.
fiction, of course. It's the best way to learn about archaeology. It's through a wild, crazy story in science fiction.
Look, Jeff,
I agree with it.
it's not where your journey starts, it's where it ends, all right?
Well said.
so-
Well said. I agree.
The journey started there. The journey started with the science fiction. The journey ended with me understanding quite a bit more about Ptolemaic Egypt than I did beforehand. So, but anyways, it was fun at the time learning about that.
And Gary was also the one who knew the most Catholic terminology during the Sound of Music talk because of Warhammer and the Sisters of Battle.
Yeah,
Yes.
he's become quite educated.
Because of yes, Jeff. Like I say, it's not where the journey starts; it's where it ends.
You pick up little tidbits of knowledge along the way.
Yes. And as long
Anyway.
as those tidbits of knowledge are actually correct, it really doesn't matter where you started looking for those tidbits of knowledge. As long as they are actually correct and they are not like picking up just garbage stuff and, accepting that as the truth.
So I do want to say one thing what I was thinking about, and this segue made a lot more sense about 10 minutes ago when Jeff was talking about the end of the movie. I will say you kind of have to, what's the word? You have to admire the pluck of the Egyptians at the end. It's like, oh yes, it's like, yes, good. The miraculous fire has burned out. So now we can chase so now we can chase the Hebrews down into the miraculously parted sea. We have them now.
Yes, that is. I was wondering about that myself. It's like that's got to take some.
It's a gutsy thing to do, and
It's got to
kind of an arrogant thing to do. Yeah,
we have them right where we
we've
want
been
them.
proven time and time again that we're on the losing side of this. Let's charge them.
The magic
Let's go
holy
after
fire
them.
is
There they
gone.
go.
The Red Sea has parted. The Red Sea has parted apparently for them to escape through. But now we have them right where we want them.
Yeah, and realistically, most armies would have just said, "Okay, no, you obviously,
like-
God from on high has sent down a pillar of fire to stop us from chasing you, and He has opened the way for you to escape. Maybe we should just let you escape."
It's like,
You know.
we're going to mark this one up as an L.
We're gonna take the L and go home alive instead of.
We're going to go home. We're not going to make any carvings about this. We're just going to pretend like it didn't happen.
We'll scrape away all the mentions of Moses that we put all over the place because we used to like him. We'll carve all those away.
And the soldiers who didn't die will make the carvings that say that there never were Hebrews. They, none of us actually ever did keep these people. We'll just accept this one as an L and move on with our lives.
Oh, I just bring up a no carving thing because
Oh no, you're right. It's just
yeah, like I did like the bare bones research, so like I don't know too much about it, but like I guess there's not outside the books of Moses and like obviously a few thousand years of oral history, there's not a lot of archaeological evidence for the Exodus, I guess. From my understanding, I could be terribly wrong.
Well,
And the two ways to take it are either the worldly point of view, which is that it didn't happen, or the otherwise point of view of it did happen, and you could even realistically accept the idea that this was so massively embarrassing for Egypt at the time that they would have just stricken all the records of it because history is
You
told.
You don't carve your L's in stone.
Yes, you don't carve your L's in stone.
I got my butt kicked so bad, I'm gonna make a stone monument about it. No, that doesn't
when
happen.
you read, like, I don't know all Egyptology stuff, but the stuff that I kind of have, like, listened to in documentary and stuff, when the Egyptians talk about themselves, it's always like, we're cool, this pharaoh's the best, and everything went well. Like, a lot of times they tend to talk positively about everything that's happening, which is what you want people to hear and review. Yeah.
Yeah.
To know about.
Like by and large, history is written by the victor. I think it's a more modern conceit to document your failings, I guess.
And even then, the failings are never really documented well, even in recent history. It just the side who loses generally just kind of accepts it and lets the other person write it and just doesn't stand in their way as much. I don't know. I guess it's part of the concept of a world that's that's shrinking in a way. But anyways,
can I give you guys a very History Channel like spin on a strange theory from archaeology and history and
Are we talking
the Old Testament?
It depends. Are we talking good History Channel, or are we talking History Channel that's like all
space
alien
aliens?
shows? Yeah.
Well, you'll just have to be the judge. I mean, hard to say. But anyway, there's another
Stargate.
theory.
No.
They went through the Stargate. That's what happened. It's like, okay. So apparently there was a group of people who were Semitic in origin who lived in Egypt for a time. And there is some evidence that there was a town set up for them in Egypt. And there are ruins that have been discovered like that. The problem with the site in matching it to the Old Testament is that it just doesn't take place during the right time period. It's during the Old Kingdom, and the Ramesses, the actual pharaoh that they talk about, wouldn't have been alive at that time. So it's almost like if it is part of that settlement or an older settlement from another time, it's almost like when they finally put everything together in the story, they just used names that they were more familiar with, like the name Ramesses or something.
Yeah,
so
I was gonna say
you kind of have to.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think in Exodus they like ever give like the name of the pharaoh. It's just and Moses went to Pharaoh.
I think they do give the name,
went Pharaoh,
but I
don't think they do. I could be wrong.
Well, I thought that they did, but the point is like
go ahead. I'm gonna look up.
It's like different people in history might have. This is a big if. I'm not saying this definitively, but there's a possibility that people in history had different views on what it means to tell about history. So would it be necessary to keep the pharaoh's name the same or have a name that people more or less recognize as the real power in Egypt or something? I don't know. But I don't know. There is some archaeological evidence for the Exodus, but I guess whether you can match it with the Ten Commandments as it was like even spelled out here, that's another huge discussion. So, yeah.
Okay, so just as a little fact check for my quick little search.
I knew you would fact check. Go ahead.
Well, I said I was going to.
No, I'm glad you are. Go ahead.
I did say go ahead. I'm going to go look it up real quick. But for my little search, it looks like the Bible does not state the name of the pharaoh who ruled at the time. Scholars have conjectured that, like based on possible dates of the Exodus, it might be Ramses II or Mernephet. I'm probably saying that wrong. MERN.
Oh, it just says the pharaoh, right?
EP.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're probably right.
But So we have the unnamed pharaoh then.
Just Pharaoh.
Just pharaoh, and I know they've
The
built.
Ramses is fun to say, so
It is a lot more fun.
Yes.
It is a lot more fun to say, and the story. I noted in the beginning of, at least in the beginning of mine, it listed out that this came from multiple sources. Most of those sources, most of those sources were not particularly like they were just books written on the subject. They weren't necessarily prime. Or what's the term?
they were
first. What's there's like a specific term in historical investigations.
First-hand accounts?
Like first-hand accounts or first-hand sources or something like that. Prime sources.
Yeah, they
Where
were
it's
like what's I can't remember. I had the word, now it's gone.
Where you could like say, on the other hand, this far back you can't get prime sources because all those people are dead for 1,000 years. But if you obviously you have to get as good of a source as you can. The only place that you could have gotten that from, apart from, as you said, BJ, the old religious texts from that survived from the time, and then also oral tradition, right? So apart from that, you don't have a lot to go on for this for this particular story. So you just gotta work with what you do have. Apart from the fact also that a lot of people accept this as being true, and it is. It just is going to be a little bit more difficult. There is definitely a lot of fodder for people who want to try to poke holes in the story. So that's the thing you're just going to have to live with.
Yeah, it's kind of thing of like most ancient history, I guess.
Yeah. When you go that far back, it's really hard to like point out to something that is like, you say,
We all
okay, this
generally
is,
agree that X thing happened. We just can't really prove it.
yeah.
Yeah, well, and I think one thing that people fall into sometimes is that, like, absence of evidence is not necessarily evidence that something didn't happen. It just means that this is the evidence we have, so come to the conclusion you want. But it's very possible for things to happen in ancient history and no one gets to ever know about it from archaeology because there's just the evidence is never found or was destroyed or built over or is underwater or something. Like certain kinds of things survive through time and other things get destroyed. So
Yeah,
it's just kind of a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. And you think that that's like a complete artifact from, that's like solely an artifact from ancient history, but even more recent history, people are arguing about specific events. I got one that still kind of, so I used to listen to a conspiracy theory podcast a while back, right? And it was kind of fun to listen to it for a while, and then it just kind of petered off. But one of the ones I listened to was talking about, have you guys ever heard of the Atlanta Guidestones?
No.
BJ,
I
Jeff?
have not.
So
Nope.
there's these, okay. So there were these large stone monoliths built a few miles outside of Atlanta, Georgia, right? And they were built in the 1980s. And one of the interesting quirks of history, you'd think something built as recently as that by a company, that is known, you would think that is something that could be well documented, right? And we would know everything.
You would find some permit somewhere or something.
Well, so apparently they can't trace where the money came from. They can't trace they know the company that built it, right? But the company that built it says that they got their money through like a shell company, and all of their dealings were with a particular person who who nobody can find any record of, right? So legit, this came the building of these monuments came from nobody, right? Now, the stuff that was written on them was all kind of like weird stuff, and people didn't like it, and it got destroyed later on, and whatever, right? It's not. There's a whole other thing to it, but it's just like, so you think that the reason I bring it up is just to say that you think that the loss of history or the mystery of historical occurrences was something that was relegated only to ancient history, but no, even more recent history can have, mysteries to it. It can have some stuff that happens that nobody is ever going to get an answer to. So, yeah, that's that particular.
Well,
no, that's a good example. Yeah.
Yeah, and like to give like another example, and this is something we actually talked about a while ago, I guess. Back when we talked about the War of the Worlds radio play, and how it's like common knowledge or whatever, I guess, that there was a great big panic and that people ran to the hills, but like there's no like documented proof of that outside of like one very isolated town. But
yeah.
So
even and I think
weird.
I told you guys at the time the reference of what happened with my family, right? At when that came out.
Oh,
at least
with
the members,
with that story. Yeah, I think you mentioned it.
Yeah, my grandma, her neighbor came over because they were just sitting in their family room at the time, and they're like, so their neighbor came over. You need to listen to this radio, and and then the neighbor, they turned it on. It was like the end of it, like this was da da da, and this was a radio play, and they were like, oh, so. Yeah, I guess we missed this fun, exciting thing. But the guy's like, oh, I thought the world was ending. Like, yeah, you get excited about a lot of things. Go home. So, yeah, you're right. I mean...
People were, in fact, scared about it.
Well, scared, but
at
not like running
degree.
for... This didn't cause the mass panic that was reported, at least to us when we were kids. So...
Yeah. Well, and that's another part of history, is that sometimes things can get exaggerated over time. But going back to the movie, though, I thought it was kind of odd, though, that they didn't do all 7 plagues, because I'm sure, I don't remember the movie you talked about, Gary, which is Prince of Egypt. I think that one goes through all 7 plagues.
10?
10 plagues
10
in Egypt?
plagues, right?
10?
No,
I thought it was.
7 plagues, 10 commandments, 7 plagues.
That was 10.
So, okay.
Oh, no,
so what are the
7.
plagues?
I understand.
What are the plagues again? Obviously, there's or at least, maybe 10 miracles. BJ, was it 10 miracles that were occurring and 7 plagues? 7 of those are plagues? I can't remember.
So it's water turned to blood, frogs, gnats, flies, livestock disease, boils, hail, locusts, darkness, and then the death of the firstborn.
Yeah.
So I don't think they didn't do the frogs in the movie, because they built mechanical frogs for the movie. And they were all like little machine, they had gears in them and all this stuff. They'd spent massive amounts of money trying to do the frog plague. And the whole thing just didn't work. The frogs didn't look realistic at all. And the director just canned the entire thing. He said, it's just not good enough to be in the movie. We can't have it, which is probably a really smart move. It's better to not have it than to have frogs that then dominate people's thoughts, because they're like, wow, that frog looked silly. So
couldn't you just like...
It's a smart move.
Get like a box of real frogs and like... put it like put a whole bunch
call
in,
up
like,
some crazy frog guy and said, bring us 10,000 frogs.
Like they have that huge set of Ramses court, right? or the Pharaoh's court, right? Couldn't you just like get that, Joe the frog guy to bring all of his frogs and put them inside of that set and do a sequence of people running around trying to avoid those frogs, and then, there's your frog plague, right? You couldn't have done that, and
It's a good question.
instead you had to do mechanical frogs that I'm just raising my eyebrow, right? They had large sequences where just about every other animal was involved. Sheep, goats, oxen, ducks, birds of all
They had
sorts.
good shots with ducks.
Good shots of all these different animals, and they couldn't like just get Joe the frog guy with a whole bunch of frogs to just wander around wander around one of their closed sets with his frogs or something like that.
I don't know. Yeah, but they also skipped over gnats, which that's fine. The flies one they skipped over. The livestock one, the boils they skipped over. The hail they did, and that was kind of a cool effect. They used popcorn. They had popcorn come down, and then there's a scene where Ramesses he's comfortable on his balcony, and then the ash starts coming down, and it lights on fire. I thought that was done well with the hail. They skipped over the locusts. They did the 3 days of darkness, though.
Well, as previously mentioned, if you want the full plague experience, just watch the plague song from The Prince of Egypt.
So they do
You get
all
them all.
7 plagues?
10!
10.
10,
Okay.
10,
I
Jeff.
usually hear them as the 7 plagues of Egypt, but 10 plagues of Egypt. Okay, fine.
I mean, to be fair, Jeff and BJ, gnats, flies, and locusts could just be summed up in one, that being bugs, right? You could just say, oh, there was a multi-bug plague. Yeah. You could
Like
just say
gnats
that.
and flies, maybe, but like locusts are like their own thing.
That is true.
Locusts are very
And,
different than gnats and flies.
and you could like do several in the same. I guess there's ways you could consolidate. Maybe fiery stuff comes from a storm, which causes the darkness, and that's how they consolidate those ones together. I don't know.
Apparently there's a famous painting called The 7 Plagues of Egypt. So a lot of people think that there's 7 plagues. I keep hearing 7, but there's actually 10 as it's recorded. A little confusing. But anyway, not important. Just another moment where BJ comes in and it's like, okay, time for another fact check.
That's what I'm here.
No, but
And to be fair, I have fact checked in your favor in the past. Like, I think I forget what movie. Tremors. It was Tremors.
Tremors.
I said it was Tremors because I said the Tremors rated R, and you said Tremors was PG-13, and you were right. So I made sure to note that in the video. So I fact check me too.
Yes, you're perfect, BJ. We know it.
It's just more fun when I
We know
fact check you. Ha! Fact check, false. I'm not perfect.
Oh, wow. Okay. So we missed out on the mechanical frogs. But yeah.
they had just about every other animal in the menagerie except for like dangerous cats. There's no like lions.
Dangerous cats?
Are there any
leop-
pumas?
No.
Wait. Is there lions as one of the... Oh.
No, there's
No, you're
not.
just
But
saying.
I'm just like
That would've
saying
been awesome.
in
A
this-
plague of lions.
no, but in this
There's no
in
lions
this-
in there. No, just throw it anyway. The audience will love it. They want angry kittens.
I mean, they make reference
Actually,
to
the kittens would having a really good time because there would be locusts to chase. There would be like
Yeah.
frogs to chase. The cats probably enjoyed this entire event. I mean, 3 days of
but-
darkness. They can see in the night. They can still go out while people are stuck indoors. I mean, the cats probably had
Anyways.
Okay.
So they
Apparently
had
tangent too far
let's
for
let Gary
Gary.
talk. Go ahead.
no, but they had just about every other. Well, they had a lot of like kind of peaceful animals. They didn't have any like. Even though they referenced it in the movie, they didn't have any alligators. They didn't have any, like I said, large. I don't even remember there being any cats. Were there cats in this movie? I don't remember seeing them.
Not
There
that I
were
recall.
dogs. There were dogs, and it's weird that there would be a movie about Egypt with no cats in it. At least I think that's weird. But yes, no cats, no, there were dogs, but there were sheep and goats and birds of various assorted types, oxens and cows and whatnot. It seems weird that the animal choices in this, how much was, and, okay, I didn't do as much research into this as you guys did. What locations were used for this?
So they
Because-
actually went to Egypt,
Egypt, yeah.
and they also did a lot of sound studio stuff back in L.A., I think.
Yeah, I saw like
But they
Yeah,
did get in a
yeah,
boat
they
and
did
go
film-
over to Egypt.
Yeah, I was gonna say they did film a location. I believe, like, even in the credits, like the chariot scenes were done by, like, I guess at the time, I don't know if this is still the case. There's like a chariot unit in like the Egyptian army, or
Yeah,
something
Oh.
like that.
and to film
Like I
on
said,
the
I
mountain.
don't know if that's the case now still, but at the time,
Yeah. To film on the mountain, they got a small film group, and they actually hiked up the mountain, and they would camp and spend several days just filming around a tall mountain nearby. So that was also done in Egypt. So like the scenes where you're seeing all those sheep everywhere, and Moses has lots of sheep, they're just covering the mountain. All these black and white sheep, all of that is really in Egypt, and it's an outdoor scene. It's kind of interesting looking.
okay, so
so
filmed on location then. In
yeah, so, and this is probably kind of a dumb question. Like, do they know, how do I phrase this without sounding like a complete idiot? Is there like a
It's only
accepted
the
mountain
internet,
out
BJ.
there
They will never
as, like,
poorly
Mount
judge it.
Sinai?
I think there is a mountain that is called Mount Sinai. I don't think because of
There is a place.
because of like we said the problems with historical accuracy going back that far.
Yeah.
I don't know if they know that that's the Mount Sinai. I know there's a Sinai
Yeah, I think there's a
Peninsula,
mountain
so-
that I think people generally believe is it, but I mean, how do you prove that?
Yeah,
and all
it's
that
it's really
stuff.
difficult.
So you kind of have to say, yeah. And there are people who will tell you this is the mountain. In fact, there's a monastery built on the mountain that people believe is the mountain. They built a monastery on it, and while they were filming, they actually had dinner at that monastery with the abbey, with all the other people there. And some of the movie ideas, so Cecil B. DeMille and even Charlton Heston, they sat down with the people from the Abbey and they talked with them about the ideas for the movie just to see what they would think. And one of the ideas was making Charlton Heston do the voice of God as well as playing Moses, because Charlton Heston wanted to do both, kind of like as a symbolic thing, like his own voice was the voice, and Cecil B. DeVille was like, you already have a big part. Like, why are you asking for this too? And, yeah, but the people in the Abbey were like, no, I think there's something interesting to that. So, I don't know. But just so, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Now that you mentioned, I think I read something about that. Like, I don't know if it was at this monastery or something. I want to say the thing I read said it was like a Jewish expert explained that, I guess, I don't don't know if it was just this guy personally, or it's like he traditionally thought that God spoken like the voice of Moses's father or something like that. I could be wrong. I could be remembering that wrong. I might be remembering that wrong. I'm probably remembering that wrong. Don't mind me. Carry on.
I just, it's
Well,
and it's
so
interesting.
Charlton Heston, I know that...
No. You go ahead, Jeff.
Go ahead, Gary.
No.
Oh,
I was
well,
going to say, I was going to move on to a different thing, but you go ahead, Jeff.
Oh, well, so I know that he plays the voice of God when during the burning bush scene, and then later on they have another scene where the fire writes in the stone, and that was done by an actor who is very unknown, who's hardly been in any movies at all. So they did have different actors play that part, but then they had the part of Moses as a baby was actually played by Charlton Heston's son, who was born during the production. And so since he showed up right on time and he was a boy, he just fit perfectly. So they're like, well, just use your child for you as a baby. So yeah, he even got a few $100s. His kid.
Yeah,
even
the
got
thing
paid.
I read. Yeah, the thing I read said that the kid was like 3 months old or something like that.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure his wife
Babe,
loved. Right?
cute little baby Heston getting put onto a floating thing that would just float.
Kidding. Onto a floating barge.
Well, I don't know if they actually. I could be remembering wrong. I don't think they ever actually like showed the kid in their ass. I think the only time they really showed the kid. I think the only time they really show the kid is when like the lady, what's her name, Bithia, like picks him up for the first time. I think that's I think that's like the only time they like actually show the kid or the baby. I guess I could be wrong, but
yeah.
You could be wrong. Now you tell
I am
us.
often wrong. Fact check. I am wrong more often than not. Take that as you will. Is that a true fact check or a false fact check?
How do you take
and it's always interesting because I remember many years ago I was visiting. So I have some of my family is Jewish, right? One of my uncles who is Jewish, I was visiting him at the time, and I got to go to his, I can't remember what their service is called, but they had like a service, and it was on Friday night before
synagogue.
That's the building.
I guess.
That's the building.
Yeah, that's the building. I can't remember what they have a specific.
Okay, I could be wrong. Okay.
But the Friday night is when because they go from sundown to sundown, right? Is when they count the days happening. So, Friday night when the sun goes down, they have a specific service to start everything off. And I was invited to that service, and at the time, it was interesting to go to, and it was something to do. So I went and did it, and it was with my uncle. So anyways. So it was an enjoyable experience, and they actually talked about this story at the time of what it was, but most specifically about the moments of specifically when their backs were to the Red Sea and Pharaoh's army was coming in, and how they were going to deal with it. And the rabbi who was telling the story, it was very interesting in a very compelling way in which it was told, and it was only slightly different from the way that we get the story ourselves when we're either watching this movie or when we're learning about it in our own religious teachings, right? So it was just kind of a nice way to see it from a different perspective, and it's definitely something I would encourage people to do.
Yeah, because I think you mentioned this to me, like they sat around and they had to debate for a while. It wasn't just that they were terrified. And in the movie they do have some back and forth discussion.
Yeah, about
like
how they're
people
going to
wanna
deal
stone
with
Moses.
this. Like, you know, they have some discussion as to exactly how they're going to deal with this. Like, do they abandon this Moses guy? Do they, and even Moses himself is like, okay, so what do I do about this situation? Do we do we try to run away? Do we give ourselves up? Do we try to fight and accept that God is on our side and, you know, he'll help us? Or what do we do? And ultimately what was decided was, you know, how it played out, in that they had to fully entrust themselves to God's care. And that's what the rabbi said, is like, because he was using it as a teaching moment, you know, he's using it as an allegory for our own, you know, journey through life, that sometimes we need to just accept and entrust ourselves fully to God's care, and he will show us the way. He will show us the way to move forward, right? And that's what happens in this particular story at this moment. In that God quite literally shows these people the way to go forward, which was not the way that they were expecting.
Yeah, because that's the kind of what I. You can keep going if you have more to say.
No, I'm.
Yeah,
that's.
But this is probably me on kind of my personal take of it. But when I always think of that particular point where they're at the water's edge and there's really nowhere to escape, I sort of feel like this is just me. Like Moses was standing there and he didn't have any idea what to do. Like there was a moment in time where there was just complete and total destruction was around the corner. And despite everything that they had done and that he had done so well and he had managed to been faithful for so long, but at this point he had no idea what to do. And there was a moment where he was just lost before he turned and saw the water. And it's like, whatever we need to do is the impossible. So if there's nowhere else to go, then you just go, it's the entire concept. Like there's nowhere to go, but then there's this path that just suddenly unfolds for you. And so, yeah, I think it's like the moment of being completely lost and unsure. And I think in the movie, they show Charlton Heston, who is unsure for a moment. They show a few scenes of him. He's not quite sure what to do, but he doesn't ever lose his faith. And then finally he turns and he knows what to do, and he parts the barrier that is keeping them. Is not a barrier. It's nothing. It is easily parted away and all that. And
I mean, it is a very, very powerful story, and that's why, you know, this is the kind of thing that lasts through the ages, because it's very much a thing that people can understand and you know, apply to their own lives. So
yeah. And I don't know if he mentioned it, but there was a comment by one of the Egyptian cavalry people who said, we should not do this. Like, we cannot fight a god. We have to go back to Egypt. And he says that, and Ramesses is like, no, I don't know. Do you think? I don't know.
Ramesses says something like it's better to die fighting a god than to fall back in shame or something like that.
Yeah.
Though
I would argue that point.
Please note that Ramesses did not go down into the Red Sea.
No, yes, he did not. He sent his guys into the Red Sea.
He's like, go get him, lads.
At least in this
version. You guys
version,
get a gold star for this one. Go.
Yeah, no, it's...
Yeah, because in the text, I think, like, the Pharaoh drowned with everybody else, right? I don't know.
I don't...
But I think... I don't know, but I really like the scene where he comes back after losing everything. I love that dejectedness. And Yul Brynner, he has such confidence. Like, he really plays a powerful, confident guy. And you can see that transformation that he has right at the end.
Where he
Yeah.
just
his
he's
power is
Brynner.
broken.
Yul Brynner has all of the charisma.
Oh yes, he is one of the greats of old. And in this one he does just he just knocks this particular performance out of the park. He kind of is this conniving. He'll do anything to get what he wants. He wants the throne, and then once he gets the throne, he wants to make Egypt the best. He wants to change Egypt into his own image, right? And it's kind of Yul Brynner does an amazing job in that particular way of it.
It was a good year for Yul Brynner because I was looking up like the Oscar nominations for that same year, and like The King and I came out that same year. So yeah, that was a really good year. Really good year for Yul.
Yeah. And
I haven't
Yul
seen The King and I
Brynner,
in ages.
I think he's the only one on the cast that's actually Egyptian. He's not fully Egyptian. I think one of his parents was from Egypt. And so he has a little bit of Egyptian blood in him. I want to say like his parents were Egyptian and Russian, but I could be wrong. Anyway, another fact check opportunity for BJ. I'll just randomly say things and see what works.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Jeff, you want me to fact check that?
I don't. I don't.
This is all a test to see how scattered and fragmented my old memory is.
How do you face like genealogy? Yul Brynner.
Parentage? Heritage?
Parentage?
Heritage.
Switzerland and Russia.
Oh, okay. Close enough. Kind of Egyptian.
Born in the same hemisphere?
I think the Swedes like come from, aren't they like a long lost group that traveled from Egypt?
Swiss, not Sweden, Switzerland.
Oh yeah, Switzerland. Yeah, that group.
Insulting so many countries in the last 30 seconds.
Okay, Jeff. So, BJ.
Yes.
Like I was saying before, it's not where the journey starts, it's where the journey ends. We have come to the truth of Yul Brynner's heritage, which is Swiss and Russian. Not a single drop of Egyptian or King and I is what? Supposed to be what? Taiwan? Or what country is that supposed to be? Siam?
It's been Siam, I think.
Yeah.
It's been so long since I've seen The King and I.
So not a single drop of Southeast Asian or Egyptian blood in the man. So yeah. Unless his Russian is very much Eastern Russian, which I don't think it is. I'm not sure.
Well, I was going to say, to be fair to Jeff, he doesn't look very, like, traditionally Russian or Swiss, to be fair.
Well, I deal with a lot of Russian and Swiss people, and he kind of fits with those guys.
Okay.
Actually.
Fact check. I'm wrong.
Fact check, BJ. No, seriously, BJ.
BJ's wrong again. Awesome.
No, well, okay. Not really a fact check against BJ, because the
I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
You have knowledge I do not. So there you go.
Yeah, I deal with these guys, and he does. Now, admittedly, those guys have a very broad spectrum. That's why I say depends on which part of Russia he comes from. It's just like, it's the same as saying, if you were to say American, but as in not just, United States of America, but if you count all of North America as American, right? There'd be a very broad spectrum of people in that particular grouping, right? So yeah. So anyways,
So
I don't know.
so after doing a bit more research, he has Swiss, German, Russian, and Mongol ancestry.
Okay.
So yeah, that
All
makes sense because
Eastern-
Mongolia is next to Russia, right?
Yeah, Eastern
yeah.
Russian. Yeah, got it. Okay, that makes complete sense now. But
Okay.
not a lot of Southeast Asia, and definitely no Egyptian. So
No.
That we know of.
that
We know of.
That we
we
know.
know of.
Jeff,
They could have.
Jeff's
You're
mission
right,
in life
Jeff.
is now Jeff's mission in life is now to do Yul Brynner's genealogy until he finds that Egyptian ancestor.
I will find his ancestry that goes back to Ramesses. I will. Okay. What other things
Good luck. Good luck.
do we
on
need
that
to
one,
talk
Jeff.
about? Yeah.
I don't have much of anything else, and okay, I know. Okay, just to peel back the curtain, we kind of have a rule where we don't try not to make the podcast longer than the movie itself, and a lot of jokes were made at this movie's
I'm pretty
expense.
sure.
We're not.
I'm pretty
I
sure
don't-
we have said that rule pretty openly.
But just
We have
just,
made the
just
same
to
joke.
restate it for this particular audience, in case we have some new people. But in this particular case, I don't think we're going to have this podcast for 3 hours and how many 40 minutes? Yeah, I don't
39.
think we're gonna.
Because it has to be shorter than the movie.
Well,
Come on, we only got another 2 hours and 19 minutes to go.
I guess
Something, I'm sure.
I guess we could go on for that long, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to fall asleep, and we might. If you do carry it on that long, you might get some ASMR of me chewing as I eat dinner. I don't think our audience wants that.
Oh, damn. One of these days, as a joke, I'm going to send food to Gary's house before we start podcasting. He's like, here's your lunch, Gary. Eat up before we start.
Well, I ate lunch today. It's getting really close to dinner time right now, and it's the whole spending time with the family sort of thing. That, and right now I've got little cats attacking me, and it's rather cute and distracting. So
All comes back to cats.
it does. And there was no cats in this movie, which is
There are no
disturbing.
cats in America.
So
You guys are upset that there's no cats.
I am. BJ not so much.
Gary
but
is.
I am.
You did good shots
It's
with
a movie
with-
I'm
about-
just amused that Gary's upset.
There's an entire thing. Egypt, like that's cats in Egypt. That's an entire thing. And there's no cats in this movie, which is at least not any that I could remember.
Mhm.
Do we need to watch The Mummy?
Yes, there were cats in The Mummy. Cats in just about every other movie that has Egypt in it. Just not this one. Just weird.
They couldn't get permits for cats or frogs, apparently.
Yes, no frogs, no cats. Now, admittedly, in the Bible story, it never mentions cats. But I don't think it mentions dogs either. I know it mentions cattle and goats and sheep. I don't know if it mentions birds.
Oh,
Maybe it does. Anyways.
well, dogs are a little more, what's the word? A little more Dogs are more associated, that's the word. More associated with livestock than cats are. I don't think there's a lot of cats out there used in herding.
And you can train them. Very easy. It's really hard to get
You
a
can
cat to
train
do
cats?
what- You can't, Jeff. That's what I'm saying.
Dogs, I think.
You can train dogs. It's really it's really hard to get a cat to do what you want it to do.
You probably could once. Then it would hate you forever. And
Yes.
destroy
Ergo-
things vindictively around you.
Ergo, it's
And
not very trained, is it?
Yeah. And then stare at you and then knock a glass off the table just as it looks you down. That's what a cat does.
growing up, none of the cats I had, like I know that's the meme nowadays, but I don't remember my cats being like, particularly gravity driven, I guess.
Oh no, I had a cat that would knock a glass off a table if a glass existed and it was half full. If it was all the way full, it would be left alone. But if it was half full and it was on a table anywhere, I would hear a crash sound because it would knock it off the table every time. And it would sometimes stare at me and then just like knock it over.
I don't,
And-
remember
I don't
cats
understand
being
this,
big on
but that was a
knocking things
particular
over.
cat that would do that.
Now, and BJ, I will admit, siding with Jeff on this one, that is a thing I've seen many cats do. Many of my own in particular. They will look at you while they're doing it too. As if to say, yes, I know what I'm doing is wrong, and I'm doing it because it's going to make you angry. Do something about it.
Oh, well, I guess Jeff already said that. My cats were like, well, I say my cats, but the cats my family kept were like strangely well behaved, according to Jeff.
They were. Oh yeah.
Oh, yes.
Those were like good cats. I was weirded out by your cats because I always known cats to be villainous creatures who you would expect to be guardians of the underworld because they were that vicious. But your cats were always nice. They just like walk by, sit on your lap, walk over your gaming table several times, of course,
As cats do.
as they do. But they were generally friendly.
These cats
Yeah.
aren't trying to kill me. What did you do to them?
And yeah. So I could see why you would want dogs in a movie as opposed to, cats, because you can make dogs do something, repeatedly on command.
Cats, not so much. Best you can get out of a cat is maybe it will lay down in a spot that you want it to lay down in if you put it there and it's feeling like laying down there.
So, yeah, good luck on that.
It's like we have this conversation talking about like how bad cats are, but like I don't have any pets at the moment, but I miss having cats more than having dogs. I guess I'm weird.
Yeah, and when you pick
Oh,
up the
but they
cat to
are-
move it, it jumps back to where originally you picked it from. So you put them off your keyboard onto the floor. They jump back on the keyboard. Then you take them off, and then they jump back on the keyboard. And then you take them off, and then they jump back onto the keyboard again.
Oh no, BJ, I can
I
tell
don't
you.
believe-
When does the universe stop going in circles?
Okay, no, but Jeff, this is how the cat gets you, right?
So I have a cat right now that is just like the most,
It's the cause of 90% of the problems in the house, right? But I know that we're never getting rid of it. Well, first off, you don't get rid of pets because that is the acceptable contract, right? They are small and cute and you take care of them. But the day we got this pet, right? We had to keep it isolated because it's small and it's scared about its new home, so you keep it isolated for a little bit. And we were taking turns going in and showing ourselves to this cat. And so I go in and I hang out with the cat for a little bit. And what does it do? Instead of hiding in a corner or running away from me, first thing it does is it hops onto my lap, starts to purr, and looks up at me. And I look down at it and I'm like, you little sucker.
It's like,
Dang
dang
it. Dang it.
It got me.
It got me. And then, no, and here's the worst thing.
It claimed you.
It hasn't done that since. Not one time since then has it ever done that to me. I have this one memory of this cat being a perfect little kitten. And then
now I look at it and it's just doing all of the naughty things.
that it's not supposed to do.
Hmm.
And all I've got to remember it is
I
just
think-
one perfect little memory. And I'm like, dang it, I can't. I can't get rid of it
Well,
because
to
maybe
be
it would
fair,
do that
this
super
particular
cute
cat
thing.
is still pretty young, right?
Yeah, I did. He is. He's still very young.
Oh.
So maybe he will settle down and stop causing all the problems.
Yeah, he'll come around.
eventually.
Yeah.
But
People buy cats just to give themselves problems, right?
no, people
That's the
buy
benefit
cats.
of cats.
People buy cats because the cats have genetically bred themselves to fit into our desires. That's what happened. They
People
figured
buy
out how to,
cats for the challenge.
For the challenge.
Dogs are easy. Dogs are unconditional love. Cats love is very conditional.
yes.
But when you get it, it's awesome.
It is amazing. Anyways. So
But it is also not consensual. Like, it would be like,
What?
no, I know you're busy.
no,
That's not what I'm
BJ.
saying.
He's got a
Is
point
that when
on
the
this
cats
one.
when the cats do love you, it's not consensual. It's like,
Maybe-
no, it is now
maybe
that we
phrase
are
that
cuddling.
differently?
Now. I know you're
Yes.
trying to get work done. No, it is this moment that I must sit
No,
on your lap now.
I know this. So BJ, my wife works
I get
from
what you're
home.
going for, but there's a different connotation.
No, my wife works from home. She loves all of the cats, right? And she works from home, and 90% of the time when the cats want to give her love is when she's working. And 90% of the time when she wants to give her love to them, they're like, no, get away from me, you strange human. And they run away from her, right? So she's like sitting there wanting to like hold them or pet them or do something, and they just run away and hiss at her. But when she's sitting down to do her work, that's when they come up and they rub on her leg, or they want to, hop on her keyboard, or hop on her lap and purr, or do all of the many things that cats want to do to show their love. Yes, I fully agree with you, Jeff. Their love is non-consensual.
Yeah.
It's when it's on their time frame. And their time frame is always when it is least convenient for you.
That's got to be hard to be in the underworld, being guarded by cats.
Yeah.
Talk about bossy. Anyway,
Do you
Wha-
prefer the Greek where it's a three-headed dog?
I guess that's not a better option.
It's
I don't
like,
know,
what,
three-headed
cats or do
dog.
other
If
serpents?
it's a normal kind of dog, then a dog you can train.
It's a
But I
normal
don't think
dog
that
with
kind of
three
dog is a
heads.
friendly dog.
I don't know.
So if it got hurt, would you have to put 3 cones on it
One big
in order
cone.
to keep it? One big cone.
One big cone.
One
of
big
shame.
cone or 3 separate cones of shame. It's kind of
3 separate cones of shame.
You'd have to have the cones at different angles, different layers, otherwise they'd bump into each other. One big cone makes more sense, I think.
it does, but now
You
that I
could be
think
right.
about it, it's probably a lot more hilarious to do 3 separate
Yeah, I
cones,
would say
because then
visually,
they do
3 cones is way funnier.
because they are
They bump
bumping
into
into each other, and they're like, no. And to have them it's another movie, the movie Up. Have you ever watched that movie?
Yes. Yeah.
So, and in that movie, they have talking dogs. Not human voices, but it's like they're very much talking dogs. They use human words, but they're very much what a dog would be saying at any given time, right? So, I could just imagine the talking dog with the 3 cones of shame, and it's like trying to figure out what's going on. The talking Cerberus dog, and it's trying to figure out what's going on as it's got 3 cones of shame separating its heads. And it's just visually hilarious. No, you're right, BJ. It would have to be 1, but 3 is so much funnier. Just, anyways. So
Yeah.
maybe I do
As
have
usual,
to
when
pull.
Gary tries to end the conversation, we tangent very hard.
So I'm gonna try to end the conversation now, given that we have done
This is
a
Gary's-
lot more than we usually say. We've gone longer on this one, quite a bit longer. It's not quite to the 3 hours and 39 minutes that we were aiming for, but we've gone quite a bit. And
We're
this
about
is
halfway
quite a
there.
lot.
We can keep going.
But now we're talking about,
Gary can take a
Dogs,
quick nap.
dogs in the cones of shame. I think we've covered the topic and then some.
I think
So maybe we need to start wrapping things up. Maybe?
okay, how do we do that?
Oh.
I don't know. In ending.
EJ says, "Okay, we're done hearing
Well-
from these fools.
Oh.
See you next time."
Jeff, you were going to say something in the middle of that, I thought.
Was I?
Well,
Probably
you-
was. It was probably a very important thing to say.
Okay,
But I forgot it,
I'm gonna,
so, oh
I'm
well.
gonna, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and make fun of Jeff then. In the middle of Gary's old speech, you did say, "Well, I think," and then you stopped. I'm like, "Oh, Jeff thought something. That's new."
It is new, and I forgot what it was, so apparently it's disappeared.
Mm.
It is
Just
it's
thought bag of
gone,
loneliness.
Into the void.
gone into the void and never to return again.
Gone
But
into
anyways.
the underworld.
Oh,
That's
I was
alright.
gonna have okay. Well, one last thought about the movie.
It came back to life. It's a miracle.
Gotta make it a 3 hours somehow. No. Okay, that is not happening. But okay, my favorite scene of this movie, and it makes me giggle every time, is when Moses gets the 10 Commandments and he comes off the mountain and he sees everybody lament, like being all partying and stuff. And so when he sees all this wickedness, he decides the best thing to do is to take the tablets, throw them towards the idol. The idol explodes and this giant crack in the ground comes up, and then fire bursts out of it, and then people start falling into the crack. And I just have always thought that was funny that in the Hollywood movie, that when Moses comes down, he's like, "Oh, you guys, you're being all naughty," and then he throws the tablets down on them and smacks and destroys them all. I don't know. It's like he throws a giant spirit bomb on them and just explodes everything. And you know, when a father comes and sees their kids have just destroyed a room and everything is broken and there's popcorn all over the floor and every cushion has been removed and put somewhere else, and they've built forts out of things that were fragile. Obviously, that's what you're going to do, is throw the 10 Commandments and make them explode in the middle of the room.
Doesn't he actually throw the tablets in the Old Testament, or maybe?
I don't think he does. He breaks them, I think. Like, they get broken, but I don't think he throws them into an explosion.
I'm trying to remember because I remember there being like some discussion as to exactly how that plays out, because I think there's some disagreements. But yeah, I'm drawing a blank on this one. I have to look more into it. Great. It's another thing of research I'm gonna have to do. Yay, research.
So he throws them down and shatters them. So
In the
he
movie,
breaks
yes.
them. In the text, he throws them down. But in the movie, he throws them at the idol like they're a missile, and then just kaboom, and they shatter with sparks and flame. It's so much better, but I don't know. It's very dramatic.
Maybe
But it
they
makes
didn't
for
have.
good.
Maybe they didn't have the space to write it down in like the original books of Moses.
I know. They're like, that's a little dramatic. Just say they broke it. Something. Anyway, yes, he does break them, which is a valuable lesson. It's like, look how I brought you these nice rules and you broke them. So here they are shattered.
You know, for a movie
And so-
called The Ten Commandments, you really don't get to the Ten Commandments until like the last half hour of the movie.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the shards, so when they're
But it-
carrying the 10 Commandments around in the Ark of the Covenant, they're shards. They're not like a full tablet. They're like like pieces because they're broken.
And then by the time Indiana Jones finds them, they're dust.
Yeah.
Ghosts
turn to
come out and
dust.
melt the Nazis. That's how we end this conversation with Indiana Jones
Yes.
and
Coming
face
full
melting
circle.
Nazis. Coming full circle. Join us next week for Raiders of the Lost Ark. Not really.
Not really. No.
A good segue from
Not
10
really.
Commandments.
Good segue.
Good segue.
Good save.
But yeah, in closing, I'd like to recommend this movie to the few listeners that are still with us. It's a good watch.
In closing,
Maybe-
Gary wants BJ and Gary to shut up.
Maybe
Stop talking.
maybe watch this over the course of, I think BJ, you said it was a few days you watched this over. Good
2
call.
days.
Yeah. Good call on that.
Well, we did choose this one because they did used to show it on TV on Easter. It must have been an edited version, otherwise it would have lasted like 5 hours with like commercials, I guess. But it started at like 3 in the afternoon or something. Happy Easter, everybody.
Yeah.
I did never fact check while doing this, and this does in fact come out the Tuesday before Easter. So yeah.
Well planned.
Don't know. Wasn't smart enough to fact check what time Passover is this year, but because it's pretty Passover-y.
Yeah, it's another calendar.
It's a pretty Passover-y movie. Good grief. I sound like such an idiot.
Fact check.
Yeah.
Fact check. BJ's dumb. True. I'm BJ. Noted idiot. With me is Jeff and Gary. Gary is noted for being very done with... Gary's noted
Done
for
with
being,
this podcast.
Gary's noted for being very done with us. We'll see you next time. Or something or other. Ramesses! I had to throw in one more Charlton Heston impression. Let people go. Let Gary go eat dinner.
Let my Gary go.
Let
I don't know why.
go.
But...
That's a good list.
Yeah. Bye, guys.